Namaste everyone, this is Vishwa again. Today I'm going to talk about the last two Indian philosophies called Mimamsa and Vedanta. So let's quickly understand what is Mimamsa and Vedanta. So Mimamsa is very close to what you call it Hindu religion because it more talks about the ritualism, worship, how to perform your duties. But it is categorized as philosophy, so I'm going to focus on that one, though it is the most complex and the longest literature was ever written in form of the sutras. It contained 2,500 sutras, the biggest one out of all six. The Vedanta was written by sage Vyasa, and his student Jaimini wrote this philosophy. So they are kind of related to each other in a student and a teacher relationship. So now I'm going to first focus on Mimamsa, what it is, and then same way focus on Vedanta. So Mimamsa basically focuses on the earlier part of the Vedas. Means Vedas has certain portions. To be clear, the two parts of it, one is called Karma Kand, means focuses on the rituals, worship, mantras, and the other part is only focusing on the knowledge, more closely with Upanishads. Upanishads are basically about the knowledge. These two, Mimamsa and Vedanta, in one way or other, doing a major work, because studying Veda and clearly understanding certain rituals or knowledge can be very difficult, because the same rituals are performed in different ways in different texts. There are 4 Vedas, and each Veda, the same ritual are performed in different ways, so it created different confusions. So Mimamsa basically studied all that and did a critical, that's what Mimamsa is called, critical investigation, and brought the understanding that what kind of rituals and how you should perform it. It also gave the knowledge about the mantra and the sound system. So let's dive into it one by one. These two are kind of distinct from each other, so there will be hardly any similarity, but except few, which I will point it out. So let's see Mimamsa philosophy, the school of ritualism. So what is Mimamsa? Mimamsa means the critical investigation or revered thoughts. This philosophy basically deals with your duties. What is the right action, which also called dharma? How to execute your karma to fulfill that dharma. It also deals mainly with sound or mantras. How to apply the rituals to gain the liberation as well. So this philosophy was written somewhere around 400 BC, and it is the longest, thickest book ever written, containing 2,500 sutras. Just imagine the complexity of this work. So now let me share some basic information of Mimamsa philosophy. Once the Vedic yagyas or the rituals had fallen into disuse or misuse, and they had become increasingly irrelevant in the lives of the people more and more. So the Jaimini wanted to bring back the Vedic rituals. So he actually covered the 2 sections of Vedas named Brahmans and Samhitas, which deals with right actions. Mimamsa is also known as Purva Mimamsa or Karma Mimamsa because it deals with ritual actions and worship. This school is basically the analysis of sound and mantra leading to the rituals, thus provides a rule for the interpretation of the Vedas and philosophical justification for the observance of Vedic rituals. It reconciles the different directives given in different texts for the same ritual. It is also said that it applies mostly to the householders. It's also known that the great chunk of the Mimamsa philosophy is derived from the Nyaya and Vaisesika duo. It's important to point it out that Mimamsa philosophy also did not accept the existence of God, even though it came from Veda. It's very interesting that all the names of the God in Vedas, Gemini says, this is just for the namesake. The power of the gods are in the mantras. Perform the rituals and gain that power through the mantras. However, later, this Mimamsa philosophy got two sub-schools. And one school started to believe or added the God concept. So that's on a high level. So there are many sub-schools in Mimamsa theory. However, two are the most well known. One is Prabhakar Mimamsa and the other is the Bhatt Mimamsa. Both are on the name of the founder. The Prabhakar Mimamsa school is an atheist school, uses first 5 sources of the knowledge which I talked about in my first video. The Bhatta Mimamsa accepts the personal God, so it is theist and uses all the 6 sources of the knowledge. So to keep the focus directly to the Mimamsa philosophy, I will not much go into the sub-schools as they can take a lot more time to explain the differences. Now let's talk about the Mimamsa philosophy's main teachings. Some of the top ones are the selfless action, non-attachment, self-control and self-discipline, having a daily schedule and psychophysical well-being, have the social awareness so that you can contribute in the society. Also have a sense of equality. Mimamsa believes that each individual has something unique to contribute, and to have the unity within diversity, and be selective because you want to spend your time what is right for you. Also, seeing the eternity in the non-eternal world. So the basic premise of right action or dharma is more on the ethical aspects of life than the rational. And that is the focus which relates to karma. As you know, normally one is slave to one's duties and actions. But when those duties and actions are performed with perfect detachment, one becomes their master and is no longer bound to receive their fruit. And in reality, in the essence, that is the karma yoga. So now I'm going to talk about those 4 or 5 major questions, how Mimamsa answers that. So in one line, if I have to say about the creation of the world through Mimamsa's eye, then the Mimamsa is the silent about how it was created, who created, and its process. However, Mimamsa believes in the reality of the world with all the countless objects in it. This world comprises the living bodies, including the various sense organs. And the souls reside temporarily to reap the effects of their actions. That can be good or bad. The various objects of world serve as the fruits to be suffered or enjoyed. So now let's talk about the Creator or God. Mimamsa system says all the materials that make up the physical world are eternally existing. Since the karmas of the souls impel these materials in the process of creation, there is no need to accept any god as the agent of creation. It also states that the names of gods in Vedas are just for the namesake. The actual power of the mantras is the power of gods. However, one of the sub-school, as I mentioned earlier, accepts the concept of personal God. Now let's see what it says about the individual soul. So Mimamsa says there are infinite number of souls. They are eternal but undergo transmigration due to their karmas, good or bad deeds in a real world. The soul has no consciousness of its own. The consciousness arises in it due to the association with the mind, the sense organ and sense object. This is proved by the absence of consciousness in the deep sleep state. Now just to remind you, this concept directly comes from the Nyaya and Vaisesika philosophy. Now giving the importance of karma, he says that when a person performs the karma, subtle form resides in his soul and will give its fruit after the death. Each person must perform daily and occasional duties for the purification of the soul and moral improvement. So let's see what Mimamsa says about suffering and liberation. It says that our past karmas are the cause of our suffering, and karma is the also way to get rid of suffering when it is performed skillfully. And what I meant by skillfully, he defines further that by performing daily and occasionally rituals, it will bring purity of mind, which will help the mind to do selfless action skillfully without attachment. And if suffering is due to the sins committed unwillingly, it can offset by the performance of the various expiatory rites, which is called prashchit. And in present, by not performing desire motivated actions, will not cause suffering and rebirth. Past actions that has caused this birth is exhausted by experience in this life. So that's the summary of liberation and suffering. So now let's see where the Mimamsa philosophy's practices are still used. So Mimamsa systems is used and practiced in following areas even today. All the Vedic duties and rituals, daily duties, ceremonials and rituals of Hindus are governed by Mimamsa system. The legal matters such as inheritance, property right, adoption, etc. has a close relationship with Indian law, especially when dealing with Hindus. So that was the Mimamsa in the nutshell. Though I have summarized it, compacted it, so the lot of information I cannot cover during the limited time. So now I'm going to move into Vedanta philosophy. Vedanta is called the pinnacle of the Indian philosophy. So what is Vedanta philosophy? I will say it's a school of inquiry. Inquiry about what? Inquiry about the absolute truth. So what is Vedanta? As the word says, Vedanta, Veda, Anta. Veda means the knowledge, Anta means the end. So end of the knowledge is called Vedanta. So literally, actually, it's the interpretation of all the Upanishads, because many Upanishads, they gave some conflicting information or ambiguous information about the same reality. So the purpose of the author was to bring them together, make it crystal clear for better understanding that what exactly it means. The author name is called Badarayan, but technically it's another name of sage Vyasa. The same sage Vyasa wrote the Mahabharata, the famous Mahabharata through which the Bhagavad Gita came in existence. He also wrote a lot of Puranas. He was the sage Vyasa is also credited to compiling the Vedas. Veda doesn't have any author, but he is credited as a compiler of Veda. He wrote the text called Brahma Sutra. As the word says, Brahma means the absolute. This philosophy was originally written around 500 BC. Later, a lot of masters and scholars, even after 1000 years, such as Sankara came around 800 AD, was the biggest propounder of Advaita philosophy of Vedanta. So in Vedanta, you will know a little bit later that how many different variations came in. There are at least 10 or 11 big scholars. Out of them, at least 5 major schools came in existence. Though I will not be able to talk about all the 5 schools, I'm going to pick one, but mention the top 3 which is more highlighted for the general understanding. So Brahma Sutra contains 555 sutras. And what is the basis of this philosophy? The basis of this philosophy is Upanishads. That's the main source. And Upanishads comes out of Vedas. So let's talk about some basics of Vedanta philosophy. The Brahma Sutra primarily deals with the Brahman or God as the absolute. It provides coherent philosophy about Brahman from the apparently conflicting statement in the Upanishads or end portions of Vedas. And that's the reason why Brahma Sutra was written, to clarify those conflicts. Now, Brahma Sutra is also known as Vedanta Sutra. That's why the Vedanta philosophy came in, or also known as Sariraka Sutra, Uttara Mimamsa Sutra, and Bhikshu Sutra, or Sutra for renunciates. Brahma Sutra in this text is so iconic that different masters interpreted it differently, which created over several sub-schools, but 3 are the most famous ones. So there are 3 major sub-schools of Vedanta. One is the Advaita Vedanta, which is propounded by Sankara or Shankaracharya. He is also called Adi Shankara. His name is, anything can be said about him is too little. In 32 years of his age, that's the life he lived, 32 years. The amount of work he has done is humongous. It is incomprehensible that a person in 32 years can do that. If you get a chance, read about him. He has done work not only on Vedanta, but many other things he has contributed, including Tantra, Bhagavad Gita, on Upanishads. So his Vedanta is basically based on 3 main sources. One is the 10 major Upanishads, Brahma Sutra, which is the core philosophy of Vedanta, and Bhagavad Gita. These 3 is called Prasthana Trayi. These 3 sources are 3 sources. And that's how his whole philosophy comes out of it. And according to him, there is only one reality, and that is called Brahman. The rest of the things are part of Maya or illusion. It sounds very interesting, right? So let's little dive into it. And here are the 3 major sub-schools of Vedanta. The first one, which is called Advaita Vedanta. The second one is called Vishisht Advait Vedanta, and third one is called Dvait Vedanta. Advait school of Vedanta is considered the superior and the most ancient one, which was passed down to Samkhya in the lineage of Vyasa. Sankhya's teachings are based on three texts: Brahma Sutra, 10 major Upanishads, and Bhagavad Gita. Together, he called it a text called Prasthana Trayi, where the Upanishads are injunctive texts, the Brahma Sutras are the logical text, and the Bhagavad Gita is a practical text. Now let me talk to you about some of the key terms used in Vedanta philosophy. And here are they. So I'm going to talk about these key terms according to Advaita Vedanta philosophy. Other sub-schools of Vedanta may interpret a little bit differently, but most of them use these key terms. The top one is, the very first one is called Brahman, which is supreme consciousness without any attribute, means it does not have any guna. Remember what I talked in Samkhya was called the three guna of Prakriti: Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. So this Brahman does not have any of those guna. That's why it's also called Nirgun Brahman, means no guna. Now the Brahman has an inherent power through which it bewails itself. He hides behind that, and that is called Maya. This is another concept in Vedanta, that everything what appears to be real but ultimately it is not real is called Maya. So to relate back to Samkhya, it's like the Prakriti what you see is what in Vedanta is calling Maya. So in cosmic sense, the ignorance is called Maya, and the words such as avidya, ajnana, vivarta are the name of the same thing. Now third important thing is called Ishvara. Isha means the one who rules. So it's the Brahman with attribute of Maya. That means it's Saguna Brahman. Saguna means with guna, who rules the world, or you can call it God. That is called Ishvara. So the fourth one is Atman. It's very much same as a Brahman. It's a pure consciousness on individual level, or soul or spirit. To better understand between Brahman and Atman, Brahman is like the forest, Atman is like the trees of the forest. And the fifth one is called Jivatman. Jivatman is made of two words, Jiva plus Atman. Jiva means the being, which is part of the Maya, having the body, breath, mind, prana, etc., and plus consciousness, which is Atman. That together is called Jivatman. So sixth one is called theory of causation. You may have heard this theory in Samkhya, but Samkhya defines that in one way. Here Advaita Vedanta defines in a different way, and that's why this is named differently as Vivartavad. Here Sankara says that an effect is merely an illusory appearance of reality, and that is the cause. So basically he's talking about Maya. Whereas in Samkhya, Kapila talks about Prakriti. Now the seventh one is prana, or the life force. You may have heard about word prana in yoga, especially in tantra. The vibration of prana is at the root cause of entire universe. This is what Vedanta says. And it is the prime cause of all events occurring in creation. Prana is not different than Maya, but is the cosmic life force, breath of the ultimate reality. And the eighth one, which I have included here, is called Mahavakya. And this is also the 4 stages of self-realization. And it basically says that there is only one reality. Like in other philosophies, you heard 16, 7, 3, 2, and this finally one reality, and that is Brahman alone is real and universe is unreal. There is only one Brahman without a second. This self is Brahman, or I am Brahman. And finally, the entire universe is Brahman. So that's the whole concept of Advaita Vedanta. Now let me talk to you about some of the key names used in Vedanta. They can be very confusing. When I was a teenager, I happened to read a book written by Swami Vivekananda on Vedanta, and I was studying the difference between Atman and Paramatma, and that was so confusing at that time, though it was written in my own native language, Hindi, but I could not understand what it is. So today, with a little bit more understanding, it's my attempt to explain so that any of you have a confusion can have a better understanding. Though I must say that there are different scholars and masters in Vedanta philosophy, the same term they can interpret slightly differently. So here is my attempt, you can see. So as you can see, the whole box is divided in 4 parts, though the whole box itself is the Brahman or the Absolute. Now how these names are used and how it is related to. So on the top level, which is on cosmic or macro level, on the bottom it is on individual or micro level. On the left side it is without any attributes, or it is not in touch with Maya. On the right side it is with attributes or with Maya. So on the top level, on the left, if you see, there are several names of Brahman. It's called Brahm, Brahman, Nirguna Brahman, Para or Param Brahman, Paramatma means Supreme Atma, Purushottama or Supreme Soul. This whole section is impersonal God, and it's only one. So now if you color that Brahman with Maya, now see the reflection on the right side, that is what we call God. And the names are Apara Brahman, Ishvara, which means Lord or ruler, Sagun Brahman means the Brahman with Guna, Hiranyagarbha is also mentioned an aspect of the God in Vedas, and God itself in the English. Now the word Bhagwan I have used because it's not a Vedic name, but a lot of people use this to clear the confusion that where Bhagwan fits in. So names such as Bhagwati and Bhagvat is also derived from Bhagwan. Means one, Bhagwati signifies the feminine aspect and Bhagavat signifies the male aspect of Sagun Brahman. Now let's go to the bottom one. So on the individual level, if you see on the left side, the words used as Atman, Atma or self, individual Purusha, soul or spirit, also used as Chaitanya or Chit. This is all individual consciousness without any attribute in Vedanta. Now, they are many in nature. Same way as I said, the top one is like a big forest, the bottom is like the trees. Now, when you look on the right side, when it comes in contact with Maya, here Jiva, Jivatma, Prani, the one who has prana. This is all living being, like who have body, mind, breath. When it come in contact with the Atma, or on the left side, this is what we become a living being. And these are the different names of Brahman in a different aspect. So usually it's called that Brahman has 3 stages. Like one you see without attribute, with attribute, and the bottom one is called together. So it's also, you might have heard, Sachitananda Param Brahma Purushottam Paramatma Sri Bhagavati Sameta Sri Bhagavate Namaha. It's all the names included in just one line. So the absolute Brahman is the true self, pure bliss and supreme soul. Sat Chit Anand. That's what the Brahman is all about. It's only one reality. It manifests in different form depending on how you look and how you interpret. So I hope this clarified some of the names, if you have ever heard and if it got any confusion from it. So now let's see what Vedanta says about creation of the world. Now these answers are not just from one school, but kind of commonly what they answer from all the schools. So Vedanta school holds that without the guidance of conscious principle, unconscious matter could not produce this world, which adheres to certain rules and laws. It discards the theory of creation of Nyaya, Vaisesika, Samkhya and Yoga. Because if you remember, Samkhya is the biggest opposing principle when Vedanta was getting written down, because that was one of the oldest philosophy. And Samkhya says that its Prakriti, which is an unconscious principle, is the mother of whole creation. Now the second one, it says that Brahman is both the material and the efficient cause of this world. From Brahman, this world came into existence, in whom it inheres and to whom it returns at the end of the cycle of creation. The third one is Brahman evolves himself into ether, air, fire, water, earth, and other by will, and associated with every stage of creation up to the last. And the last one, it says, since it is Brahman that has evolved into this world is not different from then Brahman. So now let's see what it says about the Creator. So Vedanta schools agrees on the existence of God, but it says that the existence of God cannot be proved or known by reasoning and logic alone. Second, the God's existence can be established only through direct experience or by testimony. And testimony here means it refers to Vedas or Shruti. So the reason for the reference is that's the place you can justify your faith and to understand the real teachings, and it can remove all the doubts. So lastly, the two names used for God. One as impersonal and transcendent aspect of Supreme, that is called Brahman. The other one is the personal God as the ultimate reality and the ruler of the world, which is called Ishvara, which has attributes, comes with Maya. So now let's see what Vedanta says about individual soul. The individual souls or Atman or the self are also Brahman. The self is hidden behind the 5 seats comprising 3 bodies. The 5 seats are physical, energy, mental, wisdom, and bliss. It's like 5 layers. And these also create 3 bodies: gross, subtle, and casual. So the physical is like the gross level. The next 3 is subtle, and the last one, the bliss, is the casual. And the human life is made of 4 components: individual soul or Atman, mind, prana or life force, and the body, which is made of 5 elements. Now Atman with ignorance or Maya is called Jivatman. and Jiva or Jivatman is subject to suffer or enjoy according to the law of karma. Now let's see what Vedanta says about liberation and suffering. So pain and pleasure, the Jiva or Jivatma receives according to their karma, as you heard in the last slide. In Vedanta, liberation means to cast away the veils of ignorance or Maya and realize one's essence through Jnana Yoga or Yoga of knowledge, that I am Brahman. The knowledge and the experience of Brahman leads to freedom from suffering and transmigration or rebirth, which is called moksha. And Vedanta provides a systematic method of spiritual practice which helps to gain release from self-created imaginary bondage of suffering. And then I'm going to talk about the practices of Vedanta. So this is a threefold practice. You have seen it before. This is a practice of Jnana Yoga. The first one is listening and understanding spiritual knowledge, which is called Sarvana. Focus on understanding the essential nature of self. And the second step is reflecting on gained knowledge and establishing the firmness in mind, which is called Manana in Sanskrit, by repeatedly analyzing the concept of Brahman. Third is contemplate and meditate on the self based on reflections, and that is called Nididhyasana. By applying the truth in daily life, and must maintain a lifestyle in which true consciousness is maintained. It's a beautiful line in Upanishad says that Om is the bow, individual self is the arrow, and Brahman is the target. So one should shoot carefully so that one should get fully absorbed in Brahman consciousness. In Vedanta, some of the practices such as contemplation, one of the examples I can give you is called vichara. There are steps to do the vichara, and there are different meditation techniques which are introduced. So depending on what you might be looking for, these tools and techniques can be applied. Also in Vedanta, just to give you an idea, that the duality which we talked in Samkhya philosophy is fully merged into Vedanta in a very interesting way. Because when Vedanta was there, the only biggest opponent philosophy was Samkhya. And in order to prove your own philosophy as the supreme, you have to give some of the reasoning to defeat or refute the other philosophy, and which was at that time Samkhya. Here, if you talk about Advaita Vedanta, when Sankara says Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya, means the Brahma is the truth, everything is false. So now let's talk about the differences and similarity between Mimamsa and Vedanta philosophy. So as you can see, Mimamsa and Vedanta take two divergent ways. At the same time, as you know, that the author of Mimamsa was a student of the author of Vedanta. And even the author of Vedanta, sage Vyasa, has referred many times about Jaimini in his work, or Brahma Sutra. Brahma Sutra is also known as Vedanta Sutra. So there is hardly any kind of similarity, but except few. So I'm going to talk about some differences and similarity just to keep the consistency of the framework I am trying to focus on. So let's see the differences first. Mimamsa focuses on rituals, worship, right action, or dharma through karma. But Vedanta rejects the rituals and focuses on knowledge or jnana for liberation. Mimamsa says our karma is the cause for suffering, and Vedanta says our ignorance is the cause for all sufferings. Mimamsa focuses earlier portion of Vedas, which I talked about earlier, and Vedanta focuses on the latter portion of the Veda, or towards the end of the Vedas, mainly the Upanishads. The original Mimamsa philosophy does not accept the existence of God, but the Vedanta accepts God and says everything is Brahman. So finally, let's look about the similarities between Mimamsa and Vedanta philosophy, which is hardly very few. So the foundation for both Mimamsa and Vedanta philosophy are the Vedas. That's the biggest common ground. Both accepts it as true and highest source of knowledge. Both Mimamsa and Vedanta provides correct interpretation of the Vedas in their respective area to eliminate any confusion about the same across different scriptures. But one focuses on karma side of it through rituals, the other focuses on the knowledge side of it. Both accepts the law of karma and also provides the solution to get rid of the suffering. So finally, here is a summary of all the 6 schools of philosophy. Out of these 6, Samkhya, Yoga and Vedanta is still the dominant philosophy today. So one way, if you see the Prakriti and Purusha, the dualistic philosophy in Samkhya, is very similar to what the Advaita Vedanta says about Brahman and Maya. Everything what Prakriti does, it takes the whole thing and puts into the Maya. The whole creation goes into the Maya. Ajnana, the Aviveka, everything goes into the Maya. So this is a kind of little bit tidbit I'm giving you. That though these philosophies are diverse and different from each other, but how they are combined and connected to each other. I hope this was useful for you. So I hope you enjoyed, and if you like, please do feel free to comment, share and subscribe. Thanks again. Have a wonderful day. Namaste. Thank you so much for listening. If you like the information, please subscribe, like and share so that everyone else can also enjoy this.